We're coming in hot with inspiring guests, witty banter, and colorful commentary for today's veterans and military community. This is the Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
They call me crazy cause I'm facing all my giants. They try to scare me into thinking I can fight it. They tell me I should never even think of trying. But that's just me, I'm gonna live out in defiance.
All right, Alphas. Thank you so much for being here. I've missed you, but also it's getting a little spooky in here. I wish I had a fog machine just coming up from behind me because it's Halloween. I don't know what you're doing for Halloween. I think I might be home. I might be giving out candy this year.
What are you going to dress up as? You got to have a costume.
I don't dress up. Every day I wear my costume. One time I went to an Oktoberfest dressed up as Christopher Columbus. No, it wasn't. It was not Christopher Columbus. It was one of the Three Musketeers, because that was the only outfit that was available at the costume shop. But it had a cape, and that's what I'm into, Amy.
Awesome. Fantastic.
But I know that for a lot of people, Halloween is one of their favorite holidays, and having a favorite holiday and something that you enjoy is good for your mental health. Crowbarring that in. Look at that segue. Amy, can you talk to us today about, one of our first stories?
Sure. I need to put my glasses on though. It's the way it goes. So today we're talking about some of the resolutions that the American Legion National Executive Committee is passing and working towards on behalf of all veterans. So they've passed 25 resolutions during its annual fall meetings, October 11th and 12th in Indianapolis at the national headquarters. Here's a few that focus on the Legion's Be the One suicide prevention mission, which you've got to check out the podcast, Be the One podcast, Legion accredited service officers and transitioning service members. Resolution number 9, Department of Veterans Affairs SAVE training at the post. The origin of the resolution is from the Department of New York, as VA SAVE training has been held at the post, district, and department level in support of the Legion's Be the One suicide prevention mission to save lives of veterans and destigmatize asking for mental health support. Resolution number 9 strongly encourages American Legion Post to host VA SAVE training classes and to invite local community government agencies, not-for-profit, and businesses to participate in the training. So, why this is so important is because we want everyone to have sort of a baseline understanding of what the training consists of. So you go to one state or another state and everyone is really just on the same sheet. And so, this sort of broadens the spectrum, but gives everyone the tools that they need. So this is an awesome way to get everyone the same training all together across the country.
Yes, and the SAVE training is it helps you to be able to talk to a veteran that is in crisis or experiencing suicidal thoughts, for those that don't know. And so SAVE stands for, the S is signs of suicidal thinking, should be recognized. The A is ask, the most important question of all. Are you thinking of killing yourself? V, validate the veteran's experience. And E, encourage treatment and expedite getting help. So obviously, everybody, we all want to prevent veteran suicide and get this SAVE training and try to make sure it's available, working at your post if it's not there already.
Yeah, good. That's a great resolution. Okay, the next one up next, Ashley.
Yeah, here we go. Resolution number 5. It calls on Congress to pass legislation funding continued research of emerging therapies such as MDMA, ibogaine, it's a hard one, and 5, MEODMT to address veteran suicides, and for the VA to conduct research on these emerging therapies and funding and training of VA clinicians on safe administration. I would say right off the bat, we just need to work on the names. And so in those resolutions, maybe we just give them different names and something easier to say, a little more catchy than ibogaine. I don't know what that is.
Ibogaine.
Ibogaine. Okay.
Those are going to roll off your tongue. I guarantee you, after another year or two, you're going to be hearing a lot more about these therapies, because it's really, the new way of treating some of these TBI and some, mental health issues for depression and other things. I've been talking to people through the Be the One podcast, and people have experienced it firsthand and really are now advocating for it. And so Marcus Capone, you'll hear more about him, Navy SEAL, who has now founded the Veterans Exploring Treatment Solutions here in San Diego, and some of these treatments that he mentioned as well. And you will know, and everyone will know more about these as they begin more testing and research, and people are advocating for them. So exciting new therapies for our veterans. Okay, how about this one? Resolution number 10, oppose claims reviews by private companies. This is really a hot topic right now, because there's a lot of companies out there who are making money off doing VA claims. But here's what the legislation is currently pending in Congress says: preserving lawful utilization of services for veterans Act, it's called PLUS Act, proposes amendments to Title 38 of the United States Code to allow private companies, including foreign-owned entities, to handle the review of claims for benefits under laws administered by the VA Secretary. The American Legion has concerns regarding the protection and security of sensitive data and medical information of military veterans, and believes that government entities responsible for reviewing claims for benefits possess the necessary expertise, understanding, accountability to serve the unique needs and circumstances of military veterans. Resolution number 10 affirms the Legion's stance that only properly trained VA accredited representatives should be authorized to file initial claims, and it urges Congress to pass legislation to restore criminal penalties for persons or companies, including those with foreign ownership, violating VA rules regarding representing or charging veteran fees to file, prepare, or prosecute initial VA claims without VA accreditation. This is such a hot topic right now, because there are companies, for-profit companies, who have access to medical records, service records, who are seeing and reviewing this data, and then they submit the claims on behalf of the veteran, and then they can make money and or sell your information, use it improperly. And so have you heard about this before, about these VA upgrade or these VA companies that have been making profits off our veterans?
I know people that have used them. As you're reading that, I just kept thinking, well, why wouldn't another country that was trying to undermine us in some way start that type of a business? Like, because you can see that angle and how it would benefit somebody that doesn't like us. And then when you read foreign ownership, I was like, oh, well, that's a good thing to include, because there's so much information in there. So much.
That's right. I didn't even think about, they might say, well, we're veterans working on behalf of veterans, but you don't know really who owns that company, and they are making money off our veterans. They'll take a percentage or just some unscrupulous ways to, get these claims pushed through. So recommendation and the resolution advocates for only VA accredited people have access to review medical and service records. So, okay. And the next one. Yeah.
We got resolution number 13, lucky number 13 on Halloween, the Transition Assistance Program app. An estimated 200,000 service members separate from the military every year. And while active duty service members must begin Transition Assistance Program TAP no later than 365 days before separation or retirement, the Government Accountability Office found in its December 2022 report that 70% of transitioning service members did not start TAP at least 365 days in advance. The report showed 25% of service members requiring maximum transition support did not attend a 2-day individual training track or were waived from attending by unit leaders. In resolution number 13, the American Legion urges Congress to direct all federal executive branch agencies involved in the Transition Assistance Program to establish a private-public partnership to create a transition app with an artificial intelligence component, and that the app equip active duty service members and veterans with the necessary information on the resources and benefits available to them. So it's an interesting thing because I wonder, here's how I approach that. My husband is a reservist, but he's full-time his whole career. He's been full-time. He's deployed a lot. And therefore, because they make this rule, so when he goes on orders and let's say he's gone for several months, then they consider him active duty. When he comes back, he goes through TAP. So for a while there, he'd been through it several times, and then they started to waive it. So I wonder if they're gonna think this resolution through. Make sure that you're reservists, you're not punishing them time after time after time.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that pain. I'm the queen of transition with being a reservist for the last 23 years. I have 10 DD-214s, and I had to sit through the TAP and TAM classes. A couple times they let me waive it, or I just went through one day. But everything changes. Things are always modernized, and this is going back years and years. But for those who don't go, I don't know why. And then they come back later and say, I need help. And so sometimes you need to force these people to do it. But with an app, that could be right there at your fingertips. So maybe there's a happy medium or a compromise to make sure people get that information that they need without spending, a week sitting in classes. So could be of good value.
Yeah. So I think also there's resolution number 6 there. Did you?
Yeah. Okay. So in line with TAP, resolution number 6, which urges Congress to mandate that separating service members utilize Department of Defense mental health services who find themselves in need of additional support post-transition, that they're made eligible to use the Veterans Health Administration behavioral and mental health services for up to 12 months from their date of separation, with the first 6 months of copay requirements waived. Okay, yeah, that is really actually a very helpful tool if that were passed and adopted. I think that veterans the first 6 months, or especially the first 12 months, they still are finding their way. And so it's kind of like a bridge from active over to, the civilian life. So of all things that they need, not just medical or dental care, which they're eligible for as well, but the mental health support and services for up to 12 months.
Yeah. And it's going to take a good 6 to 12 months before they say, okay, maybe this is something that'll benefit me. They get over the high of being out and, the jumping in the cold water of, not having that day-to-day structure. And then obviously they've spent their whole career going, no, I can't go to mental health because I'll get in trouble. And now all of a sudden, I've been out for a couple months and they're giving me this, maybe I should go see it. So it's such a mentality shift, and it's going back and forth. And that's why it's so hard for service members when they get out. This transition piece, it just crushes people. So I'm glad they're doing it. I think that it should be longer. I think it's going to take longer for people to come to that conclusion that they need it. But this is a great start.
Yeah. And so as you can see, American Legion is always looking after our veterans and focused on mental health and actual common sense training. Also, legislation to mandate the VA claims services be accredited only by the VA. Such great initiatives here, and that's why American Legion is here for our veterans. So this is fantastic.
Yeah, and the full list of these approved resolutions is in that Legion digital archive, so check that out. We're going to put a link in the show notes. Check it out, read them, get them tattooed on your arms. That's what I want to see. Today, everybody, I'm excited because we're going to be joined by Aaron Hale. He's a 14-year veteran of both the Navy and Army who deployed once to Iraq and was on his second mission to Afghanistan when an IED blast took his eyes and ended his operational career as an EOD team leader. Aaron sees his injury as an example of divine direction and lives his life with a challenge-accepted mindset, overcoming obstacles and setbacks to excel as an elite athlete, an entrepreneur, and someone dedicated to helping others through his podcast, Point of Impact. Alphas, we'll be right back to talk about all of this with Aaron right after the break.
The American Legion is raising awareness about PTSD and veteran suicide by offering hope, camaraderie, and support.
Be the one to help end veteran suicide.
The goal of the American Legion's Be the One campaign is to destigmatize asking for mental health support.
Be the one to ask a veteran in your life how they're doing.
Be the one who saves one veteran.
Go to betheone.org and help the American Legion end veteran suicide.
Will you be the one?
All right, Alphas, I hope you're having a great week. My name is Ashley Gutermuth. I am here with the fantastic Amy Forsyth, and I'm excited to introduce our guest today, a 14-year veteran of both the Navy and Army. Please welcome Aaron Hale. Aaron, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Are you having a good week so far?
Oh, it's going great. Just sold a house. I did not lose a prosthetic eye like last week. Things are terrific.
Well, I believe
Aaron, yeah, Aaron, you have an amazing story. Reading your bio probably doesn't even capture most of what you've been doing, but you know, a lot of our listeners probably want to hear your, your journey of service. And if you can take us back to and recount the story for us with your injuries, but then we'll get into all the amazing sports that you're doing and your challenges and your motivational speaking where people can hear you. But can you take us back to your service days and when you were in Afghanistan and what happened when the IED hit your team?
It is a bit of a circuitous trip, but I grew up in Northeast Ohio, Akron, and when I was a kid, I was one of those things I heard quite a bit was you have so much potential, which means you're lazy. I was like the all-American slacker, and just had enough talent and ability to not need to work very hard to get by. But then, a failed attempt at college when everybody else knew how to work hard passed me by. I needed to find a new course. I needed to get some of those work values, right? Personal goals, achievement, work ethic. So I joined the military. I started off in the Navy as a cook, and somehow along the way became an Army EOD technician, explosive ordnance disposal. And during the 14 years of service, when I'd originally planned to do 4 years, get the GI Bill, get out, I fell in love with service. I got those internal personal values that I'd been seeking, but accidentally caught those external values: leadership, teamwork, love of service and duty and all of that. And, I tell people when I jumped ship from being a Navy cook to Army bomb squad, when I got my first confirmed kill with an egg roll, I decided to start saving lives instead. And then definitely a strange course correction, but I'd been I joined in a time of peace in 1999, and then of course 2 years later, all of a sudden we soon found ourselves in 2 wars. Even though I was in the service, and every role in the military is important, of course. But I was cooking for a 3-star admiral while we were home ported in Gaeta, Italy, on the flagship, and I was sailing around the Mediterranean, cooking for this top brass, and we were at war. It definitely wasn't a hardship duty, but I was watching these operations unfold on television, CNN and Fox. Even though I was in the service, I was wearing the uniform, and I was proud of what I was doing. I felt like I could be more to the effort, my talents and abilities and everything I picked up along the way. I could be and do better. So that's when I volunteered to deploy for the first time as a cook. And I met an EOD technicians when I was on deployment. And as soon as I learned about the technical aspect of the job, the tight-knit brotherhood, and the fact that they're lifesavers on the battlefield, I was hooked. So I requested a switch over from Navy cook to Navy EOD, and they promptly denied me. I guess they like my cooking too much. But I was dead set. And when my contract was up for re-enlistment, I decided to hang up my Navy uniform, hang up my Dixie cup, and go over to the Army and become an EOD technician. I deployed 2 more times in 2011 as an EOD team leader. I was 8 months into a 12-month deployment when I'd been injured. There was a secondary device on the side of the road when I was working on a primary device, working on something that had been found, and there was something else that hadn't been detected nearby, and that detonated, took both of my eyes, cracked my skull in a few places where I was leaking spinal fluid right out my sinuses, right out my nose, and it plunged me into blindness for the rest of my life.
What part of Afghanistan were you in when the IED hit?
I was just west of Kandahar in the Zaray district. There was a little town called Siachoy, and my team was there attached to the 4-4 Cav Scouts out of Fort Riley. We were busy. We just every day there were more and more IEDs buried everywhere. It was a very contentious area, and I heard one guy describe it, to put it into perspective. He said every step we took was a deliberate act, and my team diffused so many IEDs, but they were all the same thing, very low tech. These pressure plates with an oil jug full of homemade explosive, connected by lamp cord and a 9-volt battery. And it was simple, it was crude, but it was also effective. And
And
it
what
was the
year?
same thing that got me.
Yeah, what year did this occur for you?
This was in 2011.
2011. Okay. So, yeah, just such bravery. EOD techs, my goodness, you guys were on the front lines, definitely saving lives. And so after that, your life took a dramatic turn. You've had to adapt to life without sight and without full hearing. Can you describe how, but let me fast forward years later, then you contracted a sudden case of bacterial meningitis. Can you describe how that shifted even more and you had to adapt from there?
Of course. Just a couple weeks before the IED blast, I'd gone home from the battlefield for my 2 weeks of R&R, and I got to visit the whole family, and it was actually the holiday time. I got to see my firstborn turn 1, witness the whole family gather around the table for Thanksgiving. It was the best last page in the photo album, I like to call it. But yeah, almost 2 weeks later, I was right back in the United States, and I was laid in a hospital bed in Walter Reed. And of course, there was a sudden, terrible transition to go through. Able-bodied to disabled, becoming active soldier, and going through a long process of becoming medically retired. It was a tough transition. And thankfully for me, I had my incredible family, very strong family, and my military family, all those warriors up and down the halls at Walter Reed that were fighting their own fight, and they weren't giving up. And I didn't have any excuse to give up myself. And it was, it's like I don't have a monopoly on pain, and I decided that I mean, it was my ethical imperative to be and do the very best I could with what I still had. And I decided to be the best blind guy I could be.
Heck yeah, I
So
love it. That's great. So when you started to process for retirement, it looks like you started teaching at the EOD school. Is that accurate?
yeah, it didn't take very long to check out of Walter Reed and get healthy. There's not much they could do for eyes. You know, they
Yeah.
patched me up, and they did do a surgery to patch the cracks in my skull, but that would become the complication you mentioned later. And so I healed up, and they sent me to the VA's Blind Rehabilitation Center in Augusta, Georgia. I learned how to be, I learned how to do all the things blind people do, like use the cane, and new accessibility devices, talking, text-to-speech, phone, computer, all that kind of stuff. And when I graduated blind school, they asked me where I wanted to retire. I said, I don't. I want to stay. I want to stay in uniform.
Yeah.
I'd actually learned about a couple of active duty soldiers like Scott Smiley and Ivan Castro, who had stayed on active duty after losing their eyesight. And I decided, even though, of course, I couldn't, do my job any longer. They don't even allow colorblind guys to do EOD work. But
makes sense.
I said, send me to the EOD schoolhouse and I'll instruct. So I did that for about a year and a half. They sent me down to Eglin Air Force Base, where the joint school is. And while I was doing that, I was still getting medical treatments, and I'd begun getting requests to speak around the country. And I'd also started learning how to get outside and stay active, because frankly, I was just terrified of being stuck on the couch indoors, just stuck, imprisoned by my disability. So I got out, and it was funny because this began when I was at the blind rehab, and a recreational therapist came in and asked me if I wanted to go golfing. And I said, you're messing with me. How's a blind guy going to go golfing? As it turns out, there are two national associations for blind golfers. I guess one faction split off from the other. That's how serious blind golfers are just as serious about the game as sighted ones. Another day, the rec therapist came in and said, hey, you want to go for a bike ride? I'm like, okay, now you're messing with me. Well, no. Tandem cycling is a very serious sport. I mean, it's a Paralympic sport. They compete all around the world. And it changed my mindset. It opened up my world to all these things that I had never even thought of in the past. So because my talking with, I talked to Ivan Castro. He was the blind Army Ranger working for the Special Operations Recruiting Branch, and he talked me into registering for the Air Force Marathon, the Army 10-miler, and the Marine Corps Marathon. And somehow I got myself talked into the Pensacola Marathon and the San Antonio Marathon. So I was registered for 5 races all within the span of 4 months. And I'd never run anything longer than a 10K in my life.
Wow.
And it was actually a byproduct. The running was a byproduct of trying to get fit for a mountain climb. I'd gotten selected to join an all-wounded veteran team up a 19,000-foot peak in the Peruvian Andes, led by Eric Weinmeier, the first blind person to climb Mount Everest. And of course, it's really hard to find a decent mountain to train on in Florida. So I did a lot of running.
You talked about golfing. I golfed a lot as a kid. My grandfather had half a foot he had lost from diabetes, but he also only had one eye. So he was blind, and one eye had a fake eye that he'd lost in a steel mill. And he had 2 holes in ones, despite being half blind. So that's always been my I know some at least partially blind people that love to golf.
I met a lot of very inspiring disabled veterans, non-civilians, non-veteran, and a few of them, like Eric Weinmeier, who'd never served, but his dad was a Marine. He started on the 10th anniversary of his summiting Mount Everest. He took the team of wounded veterans up a sister summit in the Himalayas, and then that turned into a program. And somehow I got my way into one of those teams. And then there was Lonnie Bedwell was the first blind person to kayak the entire Grand Canyon in a solo boat. So I looked that guy up and I went kayaking with him. And it just, this fear of the fear of being stuck and inhibited by my disabilities morphed into a new sense of adventure. And it was the thrill of achieving something beyond what I even considered when I could see. And so I was kayaking, I was climbing mountains, running marathons, and doing all. It was really enjoying my life. And about just shy of 4 years later, after the bomb blast, tragedy hit me again. And I've been speaking about this triumph over tragedy and strength through struggle, not despite it. And here I was, I contracted bacterial meningitis. I guess the patched cracks in my skull hadn't been completely patched up, and this bacteria crept into my skull and was trying to kill me from my brain out.
Oh my God.
So I got sent right back to the hospital, and I was out for 4 days or so, just as they hit me with heavy doses of antibiotics. And when I came to, my mom was by my side, my girlfriend, who's now my wife, was by my side, and it felt like I was underwater. And the doctor told me what was going on and what had been happening. And the bacteria was, besides trying to kill me, it was also stealing what was left of my hearing that the bomb blast hadn't taken 4 years earlier. So I was going to be 100% blind and 100% deaf. Oh. The first thing I said to the doctor was, so what you're telling me is I'm never going to have to pretend to pay attention ever again? There's a silver lining to everything. But of course, I attribute it to how far gone my ears already were, because I didn't hear my mom or my girlfriend laugh at that joke.
I'm reading here that you also completed the Badwater 135. I mean, just some amazing experiences despite these setbacks and these obstacles, Aaron. It's just, you must have had some mental coaching and mindset training. What are your biggest inspirations to try and stay positive and push yourself to do these things?
Well, besides having an incredibly inspirational mother and father, my mom had been through tragedy with my brother years before. He'd been injured in a roadside construction accident and was permanently injured. So my family's no stranger to tragedy. I definitely credit the military at my experiences, both in the Navy and in the Army, for a lot of my perspective. There was, every 3 tech team in EOD, at least in the Army, is sent on deployment with an entire shipping container full of tools, from bomb suits, robots, you name it. We've got it for everything that blows up. Everything from hand grenades to nuclear weapons. We've got tools for it. And when we get on deployment onto the battlefield, we're given one of those big armored trucks, but it's not as big as the shipping container. And we have to set some tools behind and do a little bit of a triage of what we're most likely going to encounter. And we can't worry about the tools we left behind. We still have a job to do. And when I got to Afghanistan, there were no roads. There were all dirt trails that couldn't fit vehicles. So we were often dismounted. We were on foot, and we could only carry what tools we could put in our rucks and carry on our back. And we couldn't grumble about, sure, we could grumble, but couldn't really worry about what we left behind. We still had a job to do. And just like General Jim Mattis said in Call Sign Chaos, things being hard were never a good excuse for mission failure. And I still was an EOD tech with a mission. And even though I had left some tools behind, I still had a job to do. And that's the way I face my life. I'm still a husband, a father, son. I'm a veteran. I want to be an example to my fellow wounded veterans and in my community in general. So, like I said, it was my ethical imperative to be the absolute best I possibly could be. When I came home from the hospital, now blind and deaf, and with a sleep disorder that comes with total blindness and loss of balance that came with the loss of hearing, I was in a pretty bad mood, not real happy to, real friendly to be around for a little while. But there was a chance I could get some of my hearing back with a cochlear implant, so I can communicate with you now. It would take over 6 months before I could get it installed and tuned in to the point where I could hear anything, and almost a year before I could have a conversation like we're having now. It's totally isolating, totally lonely, frustrating. And it was because of my running, because of just, I had to get creative. I had to do something. It was about, I had to take my mind off of myself. So I did what anybody in my situation would do: started a fudge company.
I know, I'm reading where you and your wife have partnered up and just settled in Santa Rosa Beach in Florida. Can you tell us about your life now and what keeps you motivated?
Well, no, we're married. We've got 3 boys. My oldest is now 12, going on 13. We'll have our first teenager, and we've got identical twin 4-year-old boys because I shouldn't be the only one that's confused. And my wife is a real estate agent in the 30A area, the Panhandle. We started a fudge company, EordinaryDelights, or EOD fudge. And
love it.
I'm back running again. I regained enough of my balance to start running, and I'm now running ultra marathons, including Badwater 135, the toughest foot race in the world.
And hottest. And I mean, I'm a runner. I've ran every day for 8 years. I run 3 miles at least every day. I have tried to run with my eyes closed.
I wouldn't recommend that.
No, I'm not very bright. But you just brought up balance, and that's a big thing. I find that I veer in one direction or another, or I almost, run into things. And so for you to be going these distances, here's my question. What do you think about? Because do you listen to anything? I have to listen to podcasts to keep me from being bored while running, but if you can't see anything and you can't really hear anything, what is happening in your brain when you're running that far?
Well, it's funny. My cochlear implant is Bluetooth connected to my phone. So
Nice.
I can listen to podcasts, audiobooks, and nobody's the wiser. In fact, kids have to punch me in the arm to get my attention while I'm cooking dinner, because they'll be talking to me for a minute and I have no idea. But there's all sorts of things that cross your mind when you're running for a day and a half. And you talk to your team, you're my guide. Most of the time it's about pace, it's about making sure you're getting the calories and the water and the salt and all that, and just focusing on putting one foot in front of the other. There's other times though, there's a common saying for a marathon, 26.2 miles, is that after the first 20 miles, you're halfway there.
Yeah.
And the point being is that, you get past the physical part, past that wall, and you get into the mental part. And that's the real challenge, because that's what it is about ultra marathons. It's all mental. Once you've got the conditioning and you've got all of that nutrition and pace and all that down, then it's about what's going on inside your mind. And you face what I call it, those demons, that negative voice, the self-limiting doubt, fear, the voice that says, "This is too hard, and you don't have it in you. You should quit. It's too painful." And that's why I do it. Because when the voice came to greet me, started talking to me in Death Valley, and saying, this is way too big. You can't do this. Who are you to think you could? And
Well, it's an amazing metaphor for life, right? And your perseverance and enduring this long life that you still have your whole life in front of you, really. And you do some inspirational speaking across the country. People want to hear your story. And what drives you to do that and to share your story with veterans or just Americans at large? What keeps you going to do that?
Well, that's the whole point. So when that voice comes to see you and talk to you, when it's just you inside your head, you can say, I've risen to the challenge, and I was expecting you. I've been looking forward to this, and I can do it. And if I can continue to face these bigger challenges and continue to have a great outlook on life and live the best life I can, maybe I can inspire others who are having difficulty. There's a saying I love to repeat, is that the story of your struggle might someday be the blueprint for someone else's survival. And that's what keeps me going. I want to be an example to my son. I want to be an inspiration to others. And I've been given the gift of this crazy story. And if I'm gonna live this life, I want it to be the best I can.
Yeah.
Well, no
I
doubt
think
that, yeah. Oh, Ashley, go ahead.
I was just saying, you're definitely doing it. I want to know, what is your pace? What's your pace for the ultras?
It varies, but here's the big secret about ultra marathons is unless you're going for a top finish, most power walk. It's especially say Badwater, nobody runs that whole thing, or almost nobody. So you run
over 100 miles in Death Valley.
Yeah, don't tell anybody that I'm an ultra walker. But truth is, we'll run for a little bit and we'll walk for a minute, and then we'll run for 6 or 7 minutes, and then we'll walk a little bit. And it's amazing how much that 1 minute or 2 minutes of walking really revive your legs and your lungs. So the pace itself varies quite a bit.
Well, Aaron, no doubt that you are the pride of Akron, Ohio, and all of the country. Where can people learn more about you and your story? I hope you write a book soon, if you haven't already, or you're getting that together. And so people can, share in your story and inspire the next generation of service members, veterans, and of course, Americans at large.
Well, they can find me on all the major platforms, the Point of Impact podcast with Aaron Hale. And they can email me if they want to find out more, maybe speaking engagements at aaronhalepodcast@gmail.com.
Okay,
and
great. We'll have that in the show notes for sure.
Yeah, and that's Hale. Aaron, I guess Aaron could also be spelled in a different way. AARON and then HALE. Thank you so much for chatting with us. It's been awesome to hear your story. And check out Extraordinary Delights, their artesian fudge and chocolate company based out of Florida. I'm going to get some. I'm going to listen to Point of Impact while I eat your fudge.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Aaron, thank you for your time today, sharing your amazing story. We are so grateful for your service and your sacrifice and your inspiration that you are sharing with the next generation, and just sharing your story. It's really wonderful to hear from you today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great week.
To look out for those that served, we must be relentless. To influence Washington to do the right thing, not just for our veterans, but for the country, we must be organized. To inspire the next generation of leaders, we must be united. We must be Legion, the American Legion. Join today at legion.org/join.
Woo! All right, Alphas. That was something. Aaron, I'm a runner. Aaron does all of this running blind and deaf. And what an amazing person, and all of his accomplishments. Check out Point of Impact. Amy, what did you think?
Oh, it's just amazing. The spirit, the perseverance, the resilience, really just a remarkable person. And we loved hearing his story. So I'm definitely going to check out his book. It's just amazing.
So good. So good. Okay, I'm ready for my favorite segment. I hope you're ready too, Amy. It's rapid fire.
it. Yeah.
Okay. Rapid fire number 1. Did Edgar Allan Poe attend West Point? It turns out, this is from Task and Purpose, turns out that the celebrated horror author did have a stint in the military and is fit for an author known for twists. His time in the Army had its own challenges and unexpected turns. Born in 1809, his father abandoned him a year later. Poe was taken in by the Allan family in Richmond, Virginia, which led to his middle name. He went to university, but racked up debt and fell out with the Allans. Poe instead went to Boston, joining the U.S. Army. This was the 1820s. It was easier to fake personal details at the time, so Poe lied about his name and age. The 18-year-old claimed to be a 21-year-old named Edgar A. Perry. Perry served in Boston and then South Carolina, earning the rank of sergeant major. What? Wow. He reconnected with his foster father and was discharged from the Army to go to the United States Military Academy at West Point in 1830. He matriculated there around the same time that several future Civil War commanders, such as Robert E. Lee and Ulysses S. Grant, were studying. More family drama and disillusionment with West Point led Poe to seek a way out, this time by court-martial. That's how we all want to go. He was dismissed by neglecting his duty and not showing up to multiple classes and gatherings. Disillusioned as he was with West Point, Poe apparently had some camaraderie with his fellow cadets. His 1831 collection of poems started with a dedication to the U.S. Corps of Cadets. His brief time at West Point, though, has inspired other stories. Louis Boyard's 2006 novel, The Pale Blue Eye, had the cadet Poe helping a bitter detective solve a murder at the military academy. The story got fresh attention late last year when a film version starring Christian Bale as the detective hit Netflix. Harry Melling played Poe in the movie. I don't know who Harry Melling is, but what do you think? What do you think, Amy? Poe went to West Point.
And now you know the rest of the story. I had no idea that Edgar Allan Poe went to West Point, served in the Army, or any of that. So in true fashion, getting court-martialed and kicked out. It's just fitting for someone who went on to great success.
Yep. I mean, what a guy. I'm going to go read The Telltale Heart just after we got off here. All right. Rapid fire number 2. Meet the Marine competing for the best mullet in America. Again, Task and Purpose, always with the good stories. Mullets and the U.S. Marine Corps share a few parallels, a great representation of America and exemplifying freedom wherever they go. Though Zachary Mills didn't have a mullet during his 4 years in the Marine Corps, he and his righteous Carolina shrimp tail mullet are out to dominate the 2023 USA Mullet Championship. You go, Zachary. I actually think is probably one of the most practical haircuts ever devised. I have not had a sunburned neck in over 2 years, Mills said, skipping past the obvious utility of the mullet's business in the front, party in the back aesthetic. So the reality is, it's been a real neat haircut, real fun. I never thought I'd have long hair, but man, my hair is pretty long. It's competing with my wife's hair at this point. Mills is on a mission to raise $10,000 for former Minnesota Viking Jared Allen's Homes for Wounded Warriors. It's a nonprofit that provides critically injured veterans with fully accessible and mortgage-free homes. I've heard of this organization before this competition, and it was real neat for me to see that Allen's nonprofit was going to be the focal point of donations for the competition, Mills said. That's a real huge aspect for me for this competition and being able to support and give back however I can. Allen's nonprofit is the official recipient of the USA Mullet Championship fundraiser. I know I've donated, with each contestant working to fundraise during the competition. Voting ended on Friday, October 20th, but check the show notes for a link to find out who was crowned Mullet King. You gonna grow a mullet?
Bless his heart, really, right? I mean, if you're gonna do something for a nonprofit, I can only imagine how much fun he's having with that.
I love it, and it's doing it for a good cause. What I love is the way that he talks is like he's from the 20s. It's like, it's real neat. My haircut's real neat. Super neat. I'm gonna go down to the sock hop. And so I hope he raises that money. And I love hearing about this Homes for Wounded Warriors. That's super cool. Okay, rapid fire number 3. I'm almost out of bullets, but here we go. America, we have our first Space Ranger. This is from the Air Force Times. Guardian becomes service's first to earn Ranger tab. Space Force Captain Daniel Reynolds, yeah. Space Force. Let's try that over again. I lost oxygen as I was floating around. Space Force Captain Daniel Reynolds recently graduated from the Army's demanding Ranger School, making him the first Guardian to complete the course, the service announced Monday. Reynolds was pinned with the Distinguished Ranger tab by his father and fellow Ranger Army Colonel John Reynolds, according to an October 13th post from the Army National Guard Warrior Training Center. Although Space Force, which called the accomplishment a huge achievement on social media, only emerged as a service in 2019, Reynolds has quickly ascended in his career to achieve out-of-this-world success. Oh, there you go, Air Force times. In 2021, he became the first Guardian to graduate from the Army's Air Assault School. In 2022, he followed that feat by becoming the first Guardian to complete the Army's 28-day SAPR leadership course, according to a Space Force release. I mean, this guy, don't mess with him. He's going to take on the moon. He's like, what can he not beat up? Guardians succeed despite stressful circumstances, Reynolds said at the time. Guardians are our nation's vanguards in the defense of the global space domain. Reynolds graduated from the U.S. Air Force Academy in 2017 with a degree in aeronautical engineering. Entered MIT, where he earned a master's degree in aeronautics and astronautics while completing a fellowship with NASA. Oh my God, this guy is he's making me feel like a failure. Right? Reynolds transferred from the Air Force to the Space Force in 2021. Just over 350 airmen have graduated from Ranger School since 1955, when the service first began sending select personnel, according to the Air Force. And I bet every one of those airmen that graduated from Ranger School got a really cute nickname from the soldiers. What do you think about this? Man, this guy is taking on the world.
Oh, what a slacker, right? I mean, smart and fit. Ranger School is definitely one of the hardest, I mean, so they say, of all the military schools out there. And so good on him, academic and being able to starve himself for days, walking in the forest and going hungry for the course. So good for him, setting the pace.
Yeah, I think that all sounds terrible, but really for me, it would be the smell. I think that this Ranger School probably smells real bad. Hey, are you a Ranger? Write in. Let us know. Does it smell awful? I'm curious. I'm super proud of this guy. There's another, he's in the Navy and he became an astronaut. Kim. He became a SEAL. He went to Ranger School. He's an astronaut now and also a doctor. Yeah. And I like, he's just amazing. So it's just these people that make our parents, not like us and want those.
I know. I can't compare. I don't even like to. I cheer them on. I like, awesome. You go do it. So it's all about the next generation doing these things. It's great.
I love it. All right, Alphas, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Make sure that you check out Amy's podcast, the Be the One podcast. You don't have to subscribe anywhere else. If you already subscribe to Tango Alpha Lima, you will get the Be the One podcast, and they have fabulous guests. And go ahead and check that out. I'm just excited. Thank you so much for hanging out with us again, Amy. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Ashley. I love it. Keep us laughing and smiling. Thank you.
Try my best. Everybody out there, don't forget to subscribe to the Tango Alpha Lima podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you consume podcasts. Leave us a review, give us a big old 5-star rating. And if you don't, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sneak into your house. I'm going to make sure that your freezer shuts off. Not long enough that you'll get sick, but it shuts off so that your ice cream melts. And you're like, why is my ice cream? It looks like a milkshake and I don't know what's happening. So you start to like tinker with your freezer and you're like, oh, well, this isn't working. It seems like things are freezing and then thawing. And you're like, do I throw away all the food? I don't know what to do. You'll never be able to fix it because it's me. It's the Tango Alpha Lima ghost that's sneaking in and is really mad that you left us 4.1 on the Spotify rating. So if you could just leave us 5 stars, because otherwise I'm coming for you. Hey, but you know what? If you have a guest recommendation, go to legion.org/Tango Alpha Lima. Click on suggest a guest link. Other than that, Alphas, have a great week. Happy Halloween. Give out the good candy. Give it out. Thank you. Have a great day.